bigger block of the voting demographic.
Right.
So, like Brian was saying, just to reiterate what we do here, we take an hour. It's two perspectives. We go over two topics, and we kind of just give two opposing views over the course of an hour. And every month or so, once a month, we'll do a special with either Radio One or TV One, who we've been talking to recently, about doing a special for the podcast and broadcasting it out to DC, St. Louis, and some other states, which is really cool. So we're excited about that. But today, we're going to be going over what is happening in Congress, the most recent revelations with Attorney General William Barr, and in regards to what has started with the Russia investigation, and now the conversation is now shifted to obstruction. We're going to go over that in this first half. And then in the second, we're going to have a special guest on, actually, and we're going to be talking about the trade war happening in China. It's kind of nice doing a domestic issue and foreign, just because people always, it's almost overwhelming always hearing bad news, what it seems like. When Obama was in office, I feel like every single time I heard the news, it was constantly like, bad. And
I mean, I think it's still now. I mean, that's our news, and that's kind of the reason why we're even doing this. Our news, specifically mainstream news, has just become, just a cash grab. That's why every single time you get on CNN, MSNBC, Fox News, or whatever, it's always breaking news. Everything's breaking news. But they want to break the news before they get the facts. They don't want to break the facts. They want to get the news first.
And sometimes I think news stations are more inclined to be creating news rather than reporting on what's actually happening.
I see what you're saying.
And I think that's what
over-dramatization, maybe.
Yeah, and I think this is a good segue into our first segment of the show, talking about William Barr, the Attorney General. So right now, the House Judiciary Committee.
What is that?
The House Judiciary Committee, actually, you gave a good definition of this. The House Judiciary Committee, it exists in Congress. It's a bunch of representatives from the United States House, and they're really charged with overseeing the administration of justice within the federal courts, administrative agencies, and federal law enforcement entities. So the Judicial Committee, the House Judiciary Committee, were the ones who were going to take in the report that the Attorney General released over Robert Mueller's report on Trump's collusion with Russia. So more or less, Robert Mueller was a special counsel. He, for 2 years, millions of dollars spent, investigated Trump and looked into
the campaign. It was Trump. It was Trump's campaign.
You can't just say the campaign, because they looked into his life. They looked into his sons, his daughters,
was his campaign. Of course,
his associates, people like Michael Flynn. They looked over everything, right?
Well, I mean, exactly. I mean, it was, and that's why I think people need to realize, and this, that it wasn't necessary. It wasn't a criminal investigation in a sense that we obviously, no matter what would have happened, the conclusion of this report, they weren't going to send Trump to jail. Sitting presidents, can't be committed a crime. They can't commit a crime by law.
They can be indicted whenever they're in office, but whenever they get out, they can definitely be charged.
So
this is my point on the media and how they are trying to create stories, because I feel that this whole spread up of collusion with Russia. I mean, if you pay attention to the news at all, or just even on Twitter, you've seen something about collusion, right? So this whole entire 2 years, Trump's colluded with Russia. There's going to be impeachment proceedings, collusion from every Democratic mouthpiece, people saying that he's going to be impeached, that they're going to be subpoenaing his son and whatnot. And then all of a sudden the report comes out and there's no collusion, right? So now the media has to take on this other narrative to... And when I say media, I'm typically talking about CNN, MSNBC. I like to call them MSLSD because I think they're crazy over there.
Oh, my God. Shut up. Jesus Christ. Faux news? You really want to be talking about faux news, though.
What I'm saying is that they were so ready to have anything against Trump that they reported on all these lies, and now it's gone, right? So what they're trying to do now is report...
I mean, what lies? What lies?
The lies of collusion, how this all started. Do you know...
There was probable collusion. I don't really remember any talking head on CNN stating that this report is going to find collusion on Trump. Now, is there going to...
I could go on YouTube right now and find someone who's saying this report is definitely going to incriminate the president.
And it's... I mean, that's why, Bill Barr himself said it doesn't exonerate the president at all. I mean, and that's the thing.
Yes, it does.
He said it doesn't.
Where?
No. William Barr straight up said that this does not exonerate the president
what Mueller
of obstruction.
said.
No, I'm not talking about collusion. He says it's full and well that we understand that there was no collusion, quote unquote, with the public records that we have.
We're gonna have to look at that at break.
Oh, we can. But Bill Barr even said that this doesn't necessarily exonerate the president.
So what is Congress trying to do? What is Congress trying to do now? What is the argument that's happening right now?
So the argument right now. So Bill Barr. Let me just kind of summarize the Democratic part. What they're trying to do. It's simple. It's not simple. It is complex. It's simple what their motive is. Of course, what they're trying to do is everyone's gearing up for 2020. I think we can agree on that. Everyone's gearing up for 2020. The whole point of this is to bog down the Republicans, specifically Trump, to the point where they're going to have an investigation all the way up to the 2020 presidential election. I guarantee it. It's politics. Unfortunately, it's our politics, partisan politics. But going back to what the Dems and their main complaints.
I agree with you wholly on that.
You know what I mean? Yeah, no, I'm
glad you said that.
No, I wholeheartly believe that. However, that's not to say that there is not legitimate complaints on the Democratic side, though. I mean, that's the whole reason why. Well, hold on. That was the whole reason why Donald Trump was so displeased with Sessions. He's like, I need an AG that's going to protect me.
Yeah, he does. Because
does he though? I thought the Attorney General is independent of executive powers in the executive branch. I mean, he's part of the Justice Department, and even Bill Barr himself said that he was not going to try Donald Trump with collusion even before he was the Attorney General, before he was elected the Attorney General. That to me alone already tells me. And on top of that, he summarized 448 pages of it was redacted. I get it. There's only 10% of it was redacted. That's true.
It's
only
less than 10%. It was 93% of the report was unredacted. Robert Mueller wanted. So I don't know about
the
Judiciary Committee right now for William Barr, the guy who had to summarize all 448 pages, of the Mueller report on whether or not there was Russian collusion. There was none, right? And Mueller wanted him to release 19 pages specifically, right? And he wanted him to do it instantly. And what happened was, whenever Mueller gave the report over to Barr, he didn't redact it at all. He didn't exclude grand jury information.
He just summarized it in 4 pages. And he didn't look at the summaries that Mueller told him to use.
His job as the Attorney General
is to give us the truth yet.
No, he doesn't. He's not even required. Well,
I told you that one.
You caught me in that. Okay, but he's not even required to go out there and do a report whatsoever, because what was in this classified material it's not supposed to be available to the public. We had no rights to it whatsoever. This was secret grand jury information, and they're protected by laws. And what happened was William Barr still went out of his way, didn't just release the 19 pages that Mueller was asking him to do. He didn't just he released a summary, but he released the full report.
After pressure by Congress.
No.
Yes.
No.
They weren't planning on doing that, Skylar. They were never planning on releasing the redacted version.
Because it's not precedent for it.
It doesn't need to be. None of this is precedent.
No, it's very precedent.
When have you had a sitting president being investigated for colluding with a foreign power?
Whenever you have people deeply within the state.
No, but just tell me, historically speaking, when has this ever happened? Historically speaking, when has this ever happened?
Trump is a historic president. There's never been
then you're proving my point.
Like this.
Exactly.
Right.
There is no precedent then. There is no precedent.
But there is precedent for our laws. There is precedent for grand jury information when these people
overstepping our laws, apparently. Jesus.
So these people, they are brought into court to testify, and they're asked leading direct questions without any lawyer of themselves and without any cross-examination, only by Mueller's staff. They're being questioned because they're trying to provoke something. They're trying to get something. The whole report, this whole collusion theory, do you know how this all started?
The Steele dossier.
I know, we should do some blaring horns. I'll get that set up for next episode. But the whole dossier started off. This whole investigation in Russia started off. You can't just investigate people in the United States like this. You have to get certain. You have to get certain
We've done it
warrants.
For a long time.
You have to get a warrant from a federal. What is it called? It's the FISA court, which stands for the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Administration. Yeah. A FISA court is pretty much what granted Obama's administration to spy into Trump's campaign, to send people with wires into Trump to try to find him and catch 22s. But what gave the FISA court the decision to go ahead and allow Obama's administrations and agencies to spy on him was a dossier, all right? So it was a document that was created by...
And what did that dossier say?
The dossier said that the Russians had blackmail on Trump for sexual acts. They said that Paul Manafort owed $100 million to the Kremlin, and he was a spokesperson between
for the Ukrainian Victor Yanukovych, because he was.
You're not listening
it was
to me.
Right.
Robert Mueller's report. Every single one of those claims within the Steele dossier went against every single one of the claims that was made in the dossier was seen in the Robert Mueller report, and they consider those false. They didn't take up a single one of those charges.
What happened with Paul Manafort was corroborated the story.
What's even more interesting about any of this is that this is just breaking this week. So whenever Christopher Steele, the guy who made this dossier,
he was a British
right. So he's a former British intelligence spy
officer,
and he's working for Fusion GPS.
Right.
Fusion GPS does a lot of opposition research. They were hired by the DNC and the Hillary Clinton campaign to make up opposition research on Donald Trump. So Steele, a member of this agency,
which isn't
Fusion
illegal,
GPS,
by the way. That's not illegal.
Fusion GPS, but guess what? Here's what is illegal: how he presented false information to the FBI and FISA courts.
Skylar, it's only false
just in order
if they
to get
didn't,
a warrant.
Guess
on
what? It was almost only false if they didn't find out that, oh snap, I guess they was right that the Russians were actually using the Trump people in the Trump campaign to get closer to Trump. Now, I'm not saying that they did, because right now there is no evidence of that. However,
after 2 years and millions of dollars off of a fake dossier,
they also pay for the whole. Let me tell you something, guys. Yeah, when people say, "Oh, we lost millions of dollars off the investigation," they actually got a lot of money that they actually. The tax fraud from Paul Manafort that they took upon themselves, and it actually paid for it. It's in the black, actually, the investigation.
None of this matters.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. And don't get me wrong, guys. Yes, $1 million is a lot, but guess what? in the grand scheme of what the budget of the Justice Department, it's not. However, that's not the point. The point is that the Senate, I said this last time, the Senate Intelligence Committee, the House Intelligence Committee, the NSA, the FBI, the CIA, our intelligence community all unanimously understand. Apparently everyone knows except the Trump campaign and people who work under him that the Russians interfered. They weren't trying to interfere. They interfered with our election. And they were favoring a specific politician. Now, if they were favoring Hillary Clinton, then I would be saying, yeah, we should be doing the same thing that we're doing today with Hillary Clinton. But they were favoring Donald Trump. Why? Because that's the candidate that they wanted to win. And guess what? It's Donald Trump Jr., Paul Manafort, Rick Gates, all these cats. Why did they so happen to have some sort of connection to an oligarch or a Russian operative? Why?
Do you see anything wrong with?
It's not a coincidence.
Let's say Trump's campaign, right? Let's turn this around, because you can't seem to get over the fact that this is something that is completely illegal that they were doing.
Is it bad that
Trump's campaign went and created a fake document and Trump's campaign paid for a fake document to warrant our federal courts to spy into Joe Biden's upcoming campaign for 2020, and it turns out that the court granted spying access based off this fake report
and we found that the report was correct? I'm like, I guess.
But the report wasn't correct.
But Scott, that's the thing. Like you're making it seem like you're making it seem like this is unprecedented. I mean, we sit here and talk about how the Donald Trump's campaign probably knew about the 30,000 emails that were leaked for Hillary. That was by WikiLeaks. That's usually ran and operated by a lot of Russian operatives.
Also unprecedented?
So it's the same thing. It's politics, dog. They're gonna find dirt on each other. That's what they do.
Yeah,
sorry,
but this is forged.
Both sides do it.
But this is forged.
But the other
this
one
is blackmail.
Too.
This is
the
complete.
The 30,000 emails.
Yes. Why didn't we even talk about that?
No, we can.
So
we
hold
can.
on.
Those emails. Now tell me something. Did any of those emails?
We're talking about obstruction of justice, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Hillary Clinton, under the threat of a subpoena, went and deleted 30,000 emails from her server, right?
Yeah.
And then they actually smashed cell phones, smashed cell phones. I'm not kidding.
Oh my God. No one's ever done that before.
Yeah, how do you normalize that? We're talking about obstruction.
But that's what I'm
saying.
Hold on,
you're talking about obstruction of justice for Trump and all these different little things on crimes that he didn't even commit.
He tried to fire Mueller.
That's not
obstruction.
That is not without his. First of all, he
didn't, because the people around him were saying, please don't do that. That would be political suicide if you did that. Why? Because they understood.
But he was leaking and going again.
Who was leaking?
multiple stuff coming out about
of
the
Mueller
investigation was happening
Mueller
up
was
into
shooting
the media.
down to news agencies that when they were reporting false things about his own investigation. You know why?
Like 3 weeks after, like 2 weeks after the fact,
because,
a day or
no, it wasn't. It was because he cared about it. He cared about.
You're skipping the point that I wanted to get to real quick.
What was
you're so quick to talk about obstruction with Trump and collusion with Trump that you don't even care that Hillary Clinton violated the Espionage Act and
because
just went
she's
and
not
deleted.
President. That's why I don't care, Skylar.
It's just such a dual-sided coin for me.
No, it's not. If she was president, I would care.
Why
but she's not
didn't
president.
Robert Mueller's report talk about Clinton at all and how Fusion GPS was directly working with Russians to create this dossier?
Because it wasn't about the Clinton founder.
And it's never going to be about the Trump.
Because she's not president, Skylar. That's what you don't get. Right. Donald Trump is the president of the United States.
Yeah.
So we should hold him to a moral standard.
Yeah.
Sorry, that's how it should work.
Yeah, your moral standards only work one way. I get that.
But if Hillary Clinton was president, I guarantee you that they should be doing the same thing. You're right.
We have a clip that we wanted to get to. So, man, we go on tangents quick, but really this week what's happening is they're going to say that Barr, the guy, we're talking about the report, but William Barr, the Attorney General, more or less, he summarized it, released it to public, and now Congress wants to hold him in contempt. What's interesting is that Democrats just a little bit ago were completely against doing this to Attorney Generals. We have a clip. Let's roll cut one.
We consider a report recommending that the House of Representatives hold Attorney General William Barr in contempt of Congress.
The Republicans have decided to go after this Attorney General. And after him, who's next?
With a contempt resolution that is riddled with errors and motivated by partisan politics.
And I am horrified that you are going forward with this contempt charge.
To say that this is a terrible use of Congress's power and time is an understatement.
This is about non-participation and contrivance and connivance.
That there's something evil.
This is a sad day.
This process is a travesty. It's a travesty of a mockery of a sham of a mockery of a travesty of two mockeries of a sham.
Just when you think they couldn't possibly go any further over the edge.
This is about politics, Chris. Let's not kid ourselves.
To marginalize.
All right. Does anyone have an Advil? I got a headache from watching that. So this right here was Democrats just a few years ago, back when Obama was in office, and Eric Holder, who was the Democrats' Attorney General. Yeah. Well, he's the American people's Attorney General, but he was appointed by Obama. So more or less, Democrats, they were saying, you cannot do this to an Attorney General. It's completely unprecedented, and it's a vehicle that should not be used by Congress, and that we're overstepping and going outside of our means. So this was done against Eric Holder after a border agent died on the U.S. southern border. The reason that he died was because Obama's administration, they had this one operation called Fast and Furious. Fast and Furious, it was a program where they wanted to track where guns were going within certain cartels and gangs within Southern America. So what happened in Mexicans? Yeah, Mexico, yeah. Build a wall. But
oh my God. No,
more or less one of these guns that they sold over to track, they lost track of it, and all of a sudden it gets used to kill an agent. So people in Congress were saying, Eric Holder, the former Attorney General, we want to see the documents. We want to see the information. Give that to us. And we weren't getting the information, so they held him in contempt of court. Yep. And contempt of court is just pretty much when you're not complying, you're not handing over information that was requested. The same thing that's happening right now. Yeah. And it's like completely polar opposites, right? Now, I think, and I have your take on this, and we got to get to our break because we got a whole other segment that we got to get to. But I want to know, Brian, is he being treated similar to Eric Holder, or had these Democrats who are now in power just completely flipping the script because they want Trump to lose 2020?
And that's now the content of the both Operation Fast and Furious and the Russian investigation are obviously different. There's different precedents for that for both of those. However, they are being pretty much held to the same very low standard in terms of politics. Eric Holder, so Operation Fast and Furious, I'm going to give a little more facts on that. That was, like you were saying, an operation where we had registered weapons going into Mexico. We were trying to get them in the hands of some cartel leaders, some high-profile cartel leaders. Around 2,000 were released. We only got like 700 back. And like you said, a border patrol person was shot by one of those guns. Was killed, murdered by one of those guns. And that was I understand why they did it, because that wasn't something that was planned. That was an original idea by the Obama administration. The ATF in Arizona were doing it at a smaller scale, but they probably knew how to do it better They probably knew how to do it better. However, anyways, yes, Eric Holder, he was subpoenaed, and he did not show up for a subpoena, and he was held in contempt.
So now we're seeing the same
and then
thing.
Obama enacted executive privilege to make sure that those documents from Operation Fast and Furious were not released. Yes, you're absolutely right. Obama did the same thing because, like I always say, politics is bullshit. They both do it. They both do it. It's annoying. Like you have one of those Advils because I have a splitting headache right now. But yes, you're absolutely right. Eric Holder and the Democrats did the same thing that Trump is doing now. However, the difference between Operation Fast and Furious and the Russian investigation is two things. One, Operation Fast and Furious it was under the impression because it was working in a smaller scale, and it was about trying to catch criminals. This is trying to catch a criminal in the highest office, aka Donald Trump. That there's a mounting evidence that a enemy foreign state is trying to attack our sovereignty and use the sitting president as its vessel. That's not the same as sending weapons over to the cartel to try to nab them.
Brian, you need a tinfoil hat or something, because these conspiracies are just going to go on and on and on until 2020 comes around, because what started with collusion has now morphed into obstruction, and it's going to keep on going to more and more things to fill your little heart's desire. There's a lie you want to believe. There's a lie you want to believe, so it's hard for me to tell you otherwise. But, final point on what's happening. I think that Trump is getting to a point where he needs to start exerting executive privilege, because throughout this whole Mueller investigation, he could have done it at any step of the way, and he didn't. He was actually been really transparent, allowing his own lawyers and White House counsel to testify before Congress when he could have exerted executive privilege, and he didn't. But now it's getting to a different point. Now they want a bill of attainder. Now they want New York to release the state tax returns. Now they want to go into the IRS and see what Trump's bank accounts have been. They want to go back and release everything on this person. They want to look into every single aspect of his life. Trump needs to not only protect himself, but protect the office of the presidency. Because
is that what's
happening right now isn't just an attack on Trump. And you're laughing. It's all funny.
Yeah, it is funny.
But what you're doing is you're diminishing the
Putin
power.
is laughing his ass off right now. He's laughing his ass off. He's winning, and you're letting him.
Let's take a break.
Fine. You know what? Let's take a break. I don't even have a final statement. You already know what I think about it. We're going to bring our guest, Cisco. He's going to be on our Cisco Cons, man. He's one of our buddies. We're going to talk about international economics. Y'all be back. Woo!
I won't go out today. Way too many things I gotta finish, better go out my way. I blow smoke out my face. Stressing really hard, I gotta get it on my own type of way. Riding slow with the game. Cause I'm riding dirty, get the skirt and get the swerve out the place. I don't know what to think, I don't know what to say. I don't know who to save, I don't know who to fake is. Blunt blowing in the front while I'm lawnmowing. Grass what I turn to when I get lost. I got issues in myself and the song going. Anyway, it's all good, I'ma get it at any cost. Fuck what you all doing. Get lost in the smoke like the mad missing. Girl hates it cause I act different. She's so silly. First milli, I'ma take her to Sicily. Grass chilling on my lips like a hillbilly. When I blow, see smoke like today's chilly. Hot thoughts all the time. My mind's in the skyscraper looking down over our city. Need papers if you really wanna vibe with me. Road Dutchies to be bustin' on the climb quickly. Split switch it down the spine, that's the dial give me. Eyes blade like the sky with the stars in it. Got glass with the weed in the car plenty. Got gas from the seas in the fall, never leave. See we smoke till the trees start to blow and we pull out another pre-roll. Whoa. 10 o'clock, but I brought about 9 skinnies. Hit on 9 when the dab and the bone hit me. 10 later on the couch and my eyes squinting. Blood passing like the tire of a car spinning. Way too many things I gotta finish, better go out my way. I blow smoke out my face. Stressing really hard, I gotta get it on my own type of way. Riding slow with the game. Cause I'm riding dirty, get the skirt and get the swerve out the place. I don't know what to think, I don't know what to say. I don't know who to save, I don't know who to fake is. Big chillin' with a top missing. She blessed, but she not Christian. Dior when I drop digits. DMs when I drop snippets. All business, cold beer sipping. No vision when I wrote these writtens. 2020 can't see opposition. Tell me I'm a victim. I might disagree, but I still listen. I ran with a bro bros, cause the bros different. Flow dripping ice cold and the code different. You iced out, that's your whole mission.
Tell me what it is, what it do. Know you wanna ride with the dudes. Know you wanna mob with the crew, outside with the food. Hey, yeah. Tell me what it is, what it do. Know you wanna ride with the dudes. Know you wanna mob with the crew, outside with the food. Outside with it, outside with it.
Really? Okay. Well, let's put that tequila down for right now. This is a kid-friendly show. Welcome back to The Flip Side. Everyone who's been watching, everyone who is watching. Jay, I saw you watching up from Missouri. I hope St. Louis is treating you well. We've been getting good stuff on the show. We've got a lot of people who've been wanting to come on. Right here we have Cisco. Cisco is a good friend of ours, and he's actually going to give a lot of good insight into this second segment of the show. But Cisco, tell everybody a little bit about yourself. Who are you? What do you do?
I'm Cisco from Dallas. These are my friends. Obviously, they were gracious enough to bring me on their cool show. I never seen it, so my first time here was really cool.
What do you think of the studio? It's pretty nice, isn't it?
Yeah, man. I only seen it on YouTube and stuff. So
can I plug you in real quick?
Oh yeah,
this song.
Please do.
He was rapping on it.
Yeah.
This kid.
Go check it out, House Blaine.
Where can they find it?
Spotify, Apple Music, download it. Show a little love.
Just show a little.
Just a little
bit.
But no, we're gonna break this down, guys. So this second segment obviously is gonna be more about foreign affairs and the international trade war that we're having with China right now. And what people don't really realize, what really is going on in terms of, you might understand kind of what tariffs are. I want to give a quick, for those who don't know, just define what tariffs are and how Donald Trump's economic policy is changing the landscape of international economics. You know, a tariff is a tax or a duty to be paid on a particular class of imports and exports. It's pretty basic.
Yeah.
And, it's what people don't really realize right now is that we are kind of in a very volatile state in terms of international economics. As of right now, our economy is doing well. It is doing well. There's no denying that, but it seems as there's some policies that are being made are kind of making some of our trade deals unstable. Cisco, we kind of talked about the other day about what tariffs are, if they're effective.
Yeah, Brian was telling me that you just wrote a paper recently over kind of what was happening with trade wars and just a little bit of background on that. Why is this important? Why should people even care about this?
Yeah, I mean, so obviously anytime you have an international trade, you're trying to make everything about your country a little bit better, right? So
that's the point of it.
Yeah, you want to be better off as a consumer. You want, as a producer, you want to be better off as well. So it's important because it affects literally everything we do. So making certain policies do affect a lot of things that people don't really realize. So it's pretty important to pay attention to.
Yeah. What my concern is when our leaders make economic economic policies more based upon politics and not necessarily feasible economic policy.
Yeah, the tariffs are a good example of that, but it's important to know about Trump too. He's not the first president to impose trade policies similar to tariffs against China. I mean, Nixon did it with quota rents.
Yeah.
Reagan did it with import quotas. There's people who do it. They're all relatively generate the same sort of effect. But yeah, Trump's kind of, obviously people like talking about Trump, so he's the easy one to talk about, kind of pick on about it.
So the most recent tariff that everyone's talking about is how Trump is going to impose either a 10 to 25% tariff on over $200 billion worth of goods that the U.S. imports from China. I honestly think it's about time for the U.S. to just start being the big man on the world stage, because for one, we're the largest importers. We really are. We're the consumers in a sense, and whenever you kind of have to go back a little bit to why we are doing this to China. And when I was doing research onto why we're doing this, apparently China's still working with Iran despite all the sanctions we've placed on Iran, who's a state sponsor of terrorism. Brian and I in previous episodes, we've talked about how the Ayatollahs, we played video clips actually, I think it was Flipside episode 8, with the governing class in Iran talking about death to America. Like they were literally chanting that in the streets. They're a state sponsor of terrorism, recognized by a lot of different other places.
That's not why we're actually in trade
But China was still, despite the sanctions on Iran, China went over to Iran and is still taking in oil from them and a lot of other sanctions that they weren't supposed to be doing.
Other countries do the same thing. That's not really why. So the reason why is that the Chinese, and you can elaborate on this a little bit, but the Chinese are shady. It's a lot of shady practices.
Well, that's only part of it. A lot of it also comes from intellectual property theft.
That's what I was going to say. So we have this thing. I mean, so basically, when you're a part of the World Trade Organization, you need to. There's like certain guidelines when imposing tariffs. You can't just be like, yo, China, I'm gonna put 50% tariff on all your stuff because I want to.
For no reason.
It's like, hey,
you can't do that. And like, as much as Trump and people want to do that, it's not really allowed. But they're very malleable guidelines to get around this. So, for example, one of the guidelines, which is what Trump's kind of pulling on to get these tariffs in China, is that if it affects the well-being of our country. So however you want to word that, you can get to it. But basically, he did a report. The USTR did a report, which is like the United States Trade Representative's Office. It was a Section 301 report. It was basically outlining what you were talking about, these spillovers, and that's all China tries to do. They try to generate spillovers because they're not as technologically advanced as some other developed countries are. So that's a goal for them. They want to steal this intellectual property, and it's been a problem since way before Trump.
And what's interesting is that so quick. When it comes, what I like talking about foreign issues every once in a while that a lot of people might not know about is that it's almost more important to us than what's happening over just domestically currently. Because, like a lot of people are talking about like the border and like, they want to stop illegal immigrants from coming over and that sort of stuff. However,
it starts with foreign politics.
Whenever you look at some of the foreign issues, it's not just trade that we're fighting with China over. Right now, they're also looking at building naval bases in the South China Sea, in the international waters.
They're claiming islands that's not theirs.
They're claiming islands, putting naval bases in. They're constantly stealing our technology. I'm sure that they're honestly trying to get involved in our elections just as much as the Russians were trying to this last cycle.
Possibly.
So it's kind of interesting hearing about them. I don't think you hear enough about it. But
people need to realize, historically speaking, is that hegemons change every 50 to 100 years. So what that means is that, yes, the United States is a superpower right now, and we're going to be trying to stay a superpower. But what the responsibilities as a superpower is understanding that, you have a lot of not leeway, you have a lot of control, and you're going to create a lot of enemies internationally speaking, because there's going to be competition. There'll always be competition. China wants to be where we're at right now. China technically has a bigger economy, but they don't have a more advanced economy.
They're a poor nation when it comes to per capita, like individuals per.
And that's why it's super important to trade with them. That's a good point. Like you want to, we have a ton of skilled labor, so it makes sense that we would want to engage in this and trade with a country that's like super abundant in unskilled labor.
Yeah, like a seventh of the population.
Yeah.
So they're a huge market. But that's what I want to get back to is, are tariffs the right?
No, I don't think so. I mean,
it's
what
not
do
the
you
right
guys
choice.
think?
I don't think
that's
so.
an immediate response to somebody stealing your intellectual property.
So here's how I'll frame it, right? And when you have a tariff, you're really all right. So when you have a tariff, I mean, it's not helping anybody but your domestic producers, domestic manufacturers. That's all it's going to help. It's not really helping the people of America. I mean, the prices that we like a tariff, like you said, it's a tax to bring a good into the country. Right. That tax, in terms of domestic prices, almost 95% getting transferred on to the domestic consumer.
I actually just read that. I literally just scrolled past that. The Dow Jones is supposed to take a 130-point plummet on Monday.
Sachs,
so it's not every time any sort of trade policy like that is going to get transferred on to consumer every single time. They're for the producers, and while it's a good short term, it's like you said, it's an immediate response. That's what a tariff should be used as. It should be used as like a pressure point, but. It's not really used like that right now.
It makes me think, though, too, how do you think the U.S. is perceived on a global stage when we take these moves?
Economically or militarily?
Well, just our perception in the world to other world leaders. Because when you think about it, we take these moves outside of the World Trade Organization. We don't really care about it. Outside of the UN, we'll kind of do our own moves. Like, how do you think other leaders look at us whenever we take movements like this and just impose sanctions wheel down the hammer on other nations.
It depends if we get the better end of the stick.
Yeah, if you generate what you're trying to generate, then I guess I was gonna say nothing, but but that's to be seen, to be decided.
And that's my problem with these tariffs is that like you were saying, like it makes sense to put tariffs like we were discussing on something you have the comparative advantage to. So for soybeans, for example, we threw tariffs on soybeans. That makes sense because we don't need to import soybeans from China.
Yeah.
But when we're throwing them on aluminum and all these other things, I mean, China just, in response, counterpunched by taxing $110 billion of American products, focusing on agricultural goods. Soybeans, calculated effort to just inflict pain on Trump supporters in the Farm Belt. They're doing it politically. And, I mean, that would be my response if I was Premier Xi Jinping.
And like you say, when you have a tariff, I mean, China's has nothing else to do but also respond, right?
Yeah, they have
so
to.
if we're a huge soybean producer, there's 3 in the world, and that's one of our biggest exports is soybeans.
Yeah,
it's really us, Brazil, and Argentina. Right. Us and Brazil make up roughly 70% of the soybean production in the world.
Jeez.
We produce almost 90% of our soybeans to China.
Yeah.
Okay.
Seriously.
Yeah. So the problem with soybeans though is it's not like a steel or a paper. You can't save soybeans.
No.
You can't. If you're expecting, hey, China just bought X amount of soybeans in whatever unit you want to measure it in last year, and then you're going to reseed your fields, you're going to recrop, and then there's a tariff.
Yeah.
Well, guess what? You just put a ton of pressure on these soybean people because China's like, we're not going to buy soybeans. They put a tariff or whatever. We're going to Argentina or we're going to Brazil. And while they can't really make up for the deficit of soybeans that they lost from America, they can just go spend money in Brazil and Argentina and be like, we'll make it better for us down here, like we do in China.
But that also makes us want to be more self-sufficient in a sense. If we are really going to import sanctions on them and it's going to be harder for them to bring stuff over here, doesn't that force us to be more self-reliant and allow for exploration to more U.S. jobs and more creation in U.S. industries?
Yeah.
I mean, one of Trump's biggest campaigning points is for 2020 is going to be how he's keeping corporations over here rather than moving over to China by ending corporate tax rates and making things better for the U.S. producer. And I feel like tariffs.
But that's not better for the U.S. consumer.
So look at this. So we did. There was a Bush when Bush did steel tariffs. That was one of the biggest tariffs since before Trump, since we've seen in the last 15, 20 years, right? Mm-hmm. He put these huge steel tariffs, anywhere from 8 to 30%, depending on what you were bringing in, aluminum, steel, whatever you were bringing in. It was 8 to 30% roughly, right? What these people saw is that actually we were losing jobs. Yeah. Because we're getting, so you got to understand when you're engaging in trade, you're doing so to get a certain good at a certain price, lower than you can make it for in your country. So say you're Harley Davidson, all right, you're importing steel from China at a certain rate. You're not a consumer of steel.
No,
you are not.
But I drive a car that's made out of steel.
Yeah, but exactly. So if these tariffs go, you're gonna buy a car, your same car at $15,000. That's all that's gonna happen, right? You're going to take on that back end of it. But the consumer, hey, you know what? We used to buy steel for this price. We could pay our people for this wage. Now you put 40% on a tariff, and now we're having to come up with the steel, buy jobs.
But at the same time,
labor is the first thing they're going to.
Labor is every time.
At the same time, I trust Trump. I trust him because he's an excellent businessman.
He's not.
He's the first.
He's not.
Yes, he is. He's the first.
It just showed that he lost $1 billion. He was in the red for 5 years.
And he made it back.
Doing what? How do you know when we don't see his taxes? That's exactly why we need to see his. That's what I'm saying. Is that when you tout that you are an excellent businessman and that you are economically you understand what's going on in the world, yada 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 yada, and then then it comes out that you were in the red for 5 years, that you were bankrupt multiple times,
that revelation didn't come out. He admitted it.
He settled a bunch of lawsuits. It's going against what he was talking about in his campaigns. And so now, since you're saying that, then yes, we're going to look into it if you're lying. If you're lying, we're going to look into your.
What do you mean we? Who are you?
The people of the United States, Skylar. Deutsche Bank.
You don't understand. You don't have the rights to just go in and.
But here's the thing: if you're going to tout as a president, no, not even president, just as a candidate, saying that, hey, I'm a businessman, I'm good with money, yada yada yada, but then a report comes out that you lost X amount of money.
It didn't come out. He said so literally on the one Apprentice show that he took a big loss and he was in billions in debt.
Trump University, Trump Steaks. Here's the thing: you don't see any of these companies he started because they all went bankrupt.
How is the U.S. doing since he's been in office, Brian? With blacks at an all-time low unemployment.
How many times do I have to tell you and everybody else that it has gone at the same rate since 2010? Why? Because that's
no one
when
respects him. I hate it. He
what
went
am I
into
supposed to
office
respect,
with about
Skyler?
$3.8 billion
What
in
am
net
I
worth.
supposed to respect?
He came here, didn't have to do any of this at all. Just came here to be a source for the American people, right? And
He's never given a shit about the American people,
bro.
Ever.
He won the Ellis Island Award with Rosa Parks and Muhammad Ali. So what are you talking about? All I'm saying is that this guy went into office with $3.8 billion.
Hillary was on the front of Time magazine one time.
Yeah, he was. That was a great read too.
Great read.
I need some aluminum. I need to make a tinfoil hat.
No, that was real. He was on the front
page.
He
was on the front page of the
Time magazine. Yeah. Yes.
Why?
That's actually that's something that's. Anyways,
I don't listen.
You look it up. You're gonna be disappointed because it's a fact. Anyways, what I'm trying to say to you, Skyler, and this is what we were kind of thinking, because I don't get if you're such a proponent. And I'm talking just mostly on the conservative side. If you're such a champion of free market, laissez-faire, then why are you trying to throw tariffs on and disrupt the international community in terms of economics?
This is simply just a byproduct of the fact that you want to have access to free markets.
This is what free markets do.
If you don't like that, then you're going to want to move towards a more socialistic ideology of an economy. And that's what you also don't like. So you have to be okay with the technology divide that's being created.
But
you have to be okay with these things.
You have to. If someone's reaching into your cookie jar, right, you're gonna slap their wrist.
No, you're gonna be like,
China is taking our
I thought Trump's a businessman.
He is.
So here's what you do: instead of putting all these tariffs that don't work for your country, you figure out ways to actually implement the policies that are already in place. You already have policies. The WTO already has policies. Get together with other countries that you trade with, make a deal.
So
and
we're
try to
supposed
put
to wait
pressure
on
on
other countries to make actions when no one even respects.
I mean, we're waiting.
I thought he was a deal maker. The deal.
Make some deals.
Make some deals.
He's a business
the
guy.
only deal that he's ever made.
He's the
he hasn't.
Guy. He hasn't.
He hasn't. The deal with North Korea fell through.
Brian.
The deal that he just had with China fell through.
North Korea.
The deal with Iran he ripped up. Skyler, what deal has he made except tariffs and a wall?
Besides tweeting.
Besides tweeting, Skyler.
Yeah. Viewers, do you see what I come on this show?
We love
I'm here
you.
for you guys. I just feel like I'm getting bullied.
No.
Every Sunday.
No, it's not.
It's not.
I just get.
It's just majority rules.
Bam.
We all think that he's not
it's not
fit.
majority rules. Is that facts don't lie.
That too.
That's the problem. Is that facts don't lie and your politics doesn't matter in terms
Facts
of facts.
Don't lie.
They
Our
don't.
great economy and low unemployment.
Historically speaking, when has tariffs worked?
Well, see, then that's my point. If the unemployment rate is so low, why are we so focused on manufacturing jobs? They're going, bro. Let me paint you a picture, Skyler.
Paint it.
I'm
colorblind though. So
we have. I'm gonna sketch it out for you. I only need a pencil. I only need a pencil, baby. We have 500,000 factories, 2,500 factories in the United States.
Okay, I'm following you.
There are 2.8 million factories in China. Where do you want to compete with that?
You can't.
There are 2.8 million factories in China, bro.
So we're just supposed to say,
yes.
We can't just bend over like that.
You won't be, bro. The only way you see like better welfare as a country is in terms of gains from trade. If you're able to specialize, you're gonna export goods you're really good at make a ton more money.
Yeah, but you sure about that? Because Venezuela was really good at doing one thing too, and look what happened to them. So I'd be careful on that point.
Doesn't make
because
sense.
guess what?
I thought we're America, bro.
We are, and our economy is far more diverse than Venezuela.
And we ain't export. We're gonna export these goods that require a certain we
paid attention to inflation. They ignored their inflation,
bro. Which Nixon didn't do. Which is what Trump's not going to do. And there's gonna be problems from that. Look, we're smart, bro. We are smart on average. We are very, very educated. Yeah. Why are we so worried about a job that we don't need to be doing?
The 50s are gone, man.
The 50s are gone, man.
China's imposing pretty strict tariffs on us as well
because of ours.
No, on a world stage, before Trump got into office, one of his main things whenever he was campaigning was saying, like, we are making terrible deals. We're sending people over and we're bending over for these other nations. We're one of the most powerful nations out there, and we're getting taken advantage of on a global scale.
You're right.
So what I like about Trump is that he's the one who's going to change that tide.
He's not. That's what I would say. Like, bro, if you go to the Chicago Institute of Economics, they're super conservative. Like, that is a super conservative.
Chicago conservative.
Yeah, dude, look it up.
I've never heard that in the same sentence.
Dude, no, the economists there are super conservative when it comes to, like, I mean, not conservative as in like abortion, gun laws. They talk about money. They're conservative in money laws, right? Okay. They're conservative in that way.
Fiscally conservative.
Yeah. So, but one thing they will tell you is that, in terms of trade, this is not the way to do it. Tariffs aren't the way to do it. There's a better way to do it.
And I want to get to the point of, you're absolutely right that China is making shady practices, and they should be dealt with because of it. I'm not saying that's not true.
They're outright stealing.
They're leveraging their markets.
Yeah, because they know we want it. So why don't we just go? Why don't American companies just stop going over there?
Going over there?
What?
What do you mean?
Why don't we stop?
If it's so bad, why don't we just stop? Because they have the choice.
They're just about a profit.
It's because
exactly.
So
why don't we reduce the corporate tax rate? Right.
No.
Some of the Democratic candidates that you guys want, they want to up corporate tax rate so they can provide for all these general
it's never happened.
Universal health.
Historically speaking, that's never happened.
So what I'm saying is that the reasons that corporations were, like, plans for Toyota were going over to Mexico or leaving the United States was just because of the ridiculous corporate taxing rate
system. No, it's because labor is cheaper over in Mexico.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's cheaper because
Look.
Because the laws over there aren't as restrictive on their corporations. Trump is allowing corporations to make more money.
Skylar, if we bring them back,
freeing up the marketplace within the United States by doing this.
Skylar, your prices are going to go up. If you're trying to get the companies to come back to the United States, especially for manufacturing jobs,
isn't that better?
No, it's not better.
It's not better. You lose every time.
You lose
every
if you
employ
single
30,000
time.
people?
And guess what? You know what's going to happen? You know what's going to happen as a company? If it's too expensive to get labor, I'm just going to automate my factories. So there will be it's going to happen. There's
going to be automation when you're calling for a $15 minimum wage in Oregon.
No, $7.25, Skylar. They're doing it right now.
Bro, think about this. You can get hurt. You can get sick.
It doesn't matter.
You, as a person in America, you're gonna form a union. You'll form a union before you let somebody pay you $7.25. Hey, let me build a robot. One person can watch 200 robots that can run this whole assembly line. I don't need people anymore. So therefore, I'm not making any more jobs.
All right.
That's the problem, Skylar.
Let me give my final point.
Get your final point.
Let me give my final point because we got to wrap this up, and then I'll let you guys just bash me for the last 5 minutes of the show like you always do. But so here's my final point.
Get witty,
we have a lot of stuff going on with China that we don't always pay attention to just because of the turmoil happening here within the United States. It's really easy to get focused on the domestic issues and pay attention to what's happening with Trump and Mueller and all this other stuff that you kind of forget what's happening overseas. China is moving its military bases out in the sea in international waters. They're working on satellites that can actually knock out our network capabilities in case there ever is a war that we can't communicate overseas with our military forces. They're also stealing our intellectual property when it comes to our economy. Trump is seeing all this stuff, and his position has to be to take action, because we're not going to go to war with them right now. We're not going to actually put troops over there. We're not going to do anything, physical just yet, but we can at least, take a stand where we know we're being robbed. Like I was saying, the weak analogy of a cookie jar, but if someone's reaching into your pot and taking it from you, you're not going to just let them keep on putting their hand back in it.
But we're letting them. That's the thing.
All right,
it's not that.
But my final point is this. My final point is this. They've been doing us wrong. We've been getting taken advantage of on the world stage, and I feel like a lot of conservatives actually disagree with tariffs. Mark Levin, one of my favorites, disagrees with tariffs. But, I'm all for a free marketplace. But I also think there has to be some sort of punishment for people dealing with Iran, state sponsors of terrorism, going behind sanctions that we place on with other countries for their own benefit. We have to take a stance. And Trump is somebody who's going to take a stance, and I respect him for that.
You don't actually believe
final point.
in laissez-faire then. Go ahead. If you want a final statement. Cisco.
Yeah. No, trade's good. We need it. We love it. It sucks. I mean, you're going to lose a lot of jobs eventually. You're going to get automated. Technology divide's always going to increase forever until you die. Whoever's watching this, we're getting smarter. And if you're not keeping up with times, you're going to get chopped off too. Mm-hmm. So it sucks. But because of that, because we like to live how we like to live, we like to have cheap goods.
We do. Yeah.
We're going to be continuing on this path for the next 20 years. So therefore, try to put in some policies that are at least, you can stand behind and actually punish rather than just putting all these tariffs that don't really really help the.
Yeah, just to kind of piggyback off that, man, like you were saying, guys, West Virginia, all those coal miners out there, I'm sorry. Your job is not going to exist in 50 years.
What is wrong with you?
What do you mean what's wrong with me? That's the facts, Skylar.
It's
not going. And I'm not saying that as I want it to happen. It's just not going to. Guess what, Skylar? You know what we don't have? People who work on railroads.
Yeah.
Why?
You know what
we don't have? You know what we don't have? People trying to get gold in a river. Do you know why, Skylar? Because we don't need to do that anymore. We don't need to do that. We have a better educated population. We have better technology than we are, and it's just gonna get better in terms of technology, and more people are getting educated. Our generation is the most educated generation in history. So, Skylar, guess what's not gonna be there all the time? Those low-skilled blue-collar jobs. Why? Because if you're a low-skilled blue-collar worker, more than likely your job can be taken by a robot. I'm sorry. It is what it is. And guess what? If you believe in a free market, then you're going to allow companies to do so. Why? Because what does a company have to do? Make a profit.
It's all about substitution.
It's all about profits.
And I'll let that happen, but I'm not going to impose something like the Green New Deal and mandate that it happens and wipe out every single coal mining job within the next 5 years. I'm not going to do something like that.
That has nothing to do with it, first off.
Yeah, it does.
That has nothing to do with this. That has nothing to do with this.
That would have ramifications that would affect this.
Right. But I mean, the climate change is a completely different thing. That's something that's going to affect all of us, kill us all if we don't get our shit together.
Anyways, we need to do an episode on climate change.
I would love to. I would love to do an episode on climate change because you assholes need to understand that the clock is ticking. Stop it.
Yeah.
Please, for the love of God, please, Lord, please, above whatever, please pay attention to climatologists, meteorologists, and scientists out in the field.
They've been yelling the sky is falling like Chicken Little for the last 3 or 4 decades.
It's not real.
It was supposed to already
It's not real.
It's supposed to have already been over. But hey, you know what? This was episode 10 of The Flip Side. Really quickly, I want to give a couple shout outs. I saw Alex Hopkinson yesterday. He said that he watches this show during work. People just put in a
for real?
Yeah, people just put in a headphone and they tune into what we're saying. They thought it was educational. So, I really do appreciate everyone who's been showing us love.
Shout out to Cisco.
We're going to keep on getting bigger and better. Cisco, my man.
Appreciate it, man.
I appreciate it.
Yeah, man, and just, hey, guys, I love, like he's saying, man, I love all the support. We love all the support. New and better things are coming up on our way. Subscribe, follow, comment, like, all social media. The Flip Side on air, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, all the above. YouTube, we're trying to boost those YouTube subscribers. Get on YouTube, man. It's live every single Sunday. Let's go. The Flip Side, I'll catch you.